Today we're going to be planting a new perennial here on our homestead. One of the first things that we did when we moved here onto this land was just plant patches of perennials all over the place. We planted nut trees, fruit trees, raspberries, strawberries, tea patches, rhubarb, asparagus. We absolutely love our perennials. Not only do they save us a lot of time, but they also save us a lot of money. Today we have a lot of things that we have to do to take care of our perennials, so we're going to take you along with us, show you all the perennials that we have, if the weather lets us, that is. We're even going to be sharing with you how valuable these crops were for us when we were doing farmers market and selling produce at stores. Hey, cowboy. You guys know how much I love tea. Tea is one of my favorite things in life. These are both of my little tea tubs, I guess you could call them. I wish we could just have a beautiful aesthetic like raised bed full of teas, but they really mix together. They don't, like, teas just spread like crazy. Once you plant them, you may as well just expect them to just go everywhere unless you have them contained. So we have these tubs. We just drilled some drain holes in the bottom of these, filled them with good soil, and planted tea in here, and it just automatically spreads all through there. We have not had any issues with the tea getting out of the tubs, which is really good because we don't want it all over the lawn. We already ran out of apple mint, which isn't too bad. I mean, winter is over, but it's annoying to not have it because that's all of our favorite tea. So I'm gonna sink another tub this year. And yes, it's annoying that they're all different colors. Like I said, it's not very aesthetic. When the grass is growing, you don't really see the edges, so it doesn't look bad in the summertime. But we're gonna sink another tub right here, and I'm gonna fill it with more apple mint because my kids are bummed that they can't have tea parties anymore. Tea was one of the very first things that we planted when we moved onto our land. Tea is something that I grew up with. All that you really have to do with it is trim it down at the end of the season and keep it weeded. This has a few weeds, that one doesn't, so I'm just gonna pull some weeds and then we're good to go.
When we got out here this morning, it was in the low 40s, and it's supposed to get about 30 degrees warmer by this afternoon. So hopefully we'll be rid of the coats and hats and stuff.
We don't actually have tea yet that we're gonna plant in this container. It's too early yet to be planting that stuff. I just wanted to have this all done so that when I go to the greenhouse, I can come home and stick the tea right straight in.
Next in our lineup of perennials is our grapes. We planted this grape arbor, what has it been, 2 years ago now? We just pruned them recently and we put compost around them. If you saw in our last video, we got some mulch that we were gonna use for these that did not turn out very well at all.
Check out the piece of metal that I found. Like, this is not mulch.
So we're still gonna need to find a solution for this. I don't know if you all remember from our goals video from the beginning of this year, I said I wanted to do a big challenge. So like a year and a half ago, I did a 50K. That wasn't just any 50K, it was a trail run that was insane elevation gain, inclines and stuff. And I wanted to do something maybe kind of like that again this year, but maybe not quite so far. I finally decided that I'm gonna do the Spartan Beast in Cleveland in May. Something that is gonna be a part of my training routine for this and has been a part of my training for anything that I've done for a long time now is LMNT. It's an electrolyte drink mix that is made up of a science-backed ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. It can help with things like headaches, fatigue, muscle cramps. So obviously it's perfect for some really hard training. There's no sugar, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, just the stuff you need to keep your body hydrated and keep you performing at your best. LMNT isn't just used by average athletes like me either. NBA players, NFL players, Olympic athletes, and even Navy SEALs also use it. And since you're part of the More Than Farmers community, you can use our link, drinklmnt.com/morethanfarmers, and you'll get a free sample pack of 8 single serving packets like these with any order. And they offer no questions asked refunds, so there's no risk to try it.
This morning it was freezing cold and then it started pouring rain. Now the sun is out and it's terribly windy. We're just trying to make this work. This here is my rhubarb plant. I used to have so many more rhubarb plants than this. I think I had at least 8, but that was when we did farmer's market. Rhubarb is a very good crop to do for farmer's market. It always sold like hotcakes and you could get quite a good price for it. My rhubarb, it feels kind of like an old friend. Like I see it every spring at the crack of spring. Rhubarb is so faithful, and if you treat it right, it's very, very low maintenance. I pretty much don't do anything with my rhubarb. I am going to compost it right now just because we have some leftover compost, and it's been a minute since this thing has gotten some love. And I also always mulch it with leaves or something just to keep the weeds down. You can see the weeds are already coming up around it. The variety of rhubarb that I have here is Crimson Red. I just got this from the Berlin Seed magazine. I just bought this as a plant. You can plant rhubarb from seed, and I actually did that for a bunch of my rhubarb. People did warn me that if you plant rhubarb from seed, it is much more likely to bolt. It like goes in flowers instead of just puts up stalks of nice rhubarb. And that was definitely true for me. I had huge problems with the rhubarb. It did really well, it looked nice, but every week I would have to cut off all the flowers, and I just didn't get nearly as much production from it as I did from these Crimson Red ones.
Our raspberry patch here used to be about 40 feet long, and we cut it down to 30 feet because we were getting so many raspberries. I think we've got somewhere between 15 and 20 plants in here, and they cost about $6 a piece when we first got them, and that seemed pretty expensive, but they easily pay for themselves with the amount of berries we get from these. Michelle figured it up, and in peak season, she's getting about $75 worth of berries 4 to 5 times a week. So they will easily pay for themselves in the long run. Raspberries are also really easy to take care of, at least in our experience, and especially since we put this trellis in. Before the trellis, they would hang way out, they didn't produce as well, and the berries are also a lot bigger. We cut these plants down a couple weeks ago, and you can see that new shoots are already starting to come up. These will grow really tall really fast, and cutting them down like that helps to keep the disease and pest pressure down, and it also makes so that our harvest comes a little bit later in the year, but it comes at more of a concentrated time rather than just trickling more throughout a longer season. And Michelle likes that because berry picking is a lot of work, and she likes to have it more concentrated later rather than needing to constantly do it all summer long. And I have heard that you can't do that with every variety of raspberries, but this variety is heritage, and you definitely can do that. It's been working really well for us for years now. The other thing that we do to keep our raspberry patch manageable is we till beside the patch every single year. We keep the row about 2 feet wide. Not ready to do that yet today because the ground is still pretty wet. It's also the reason why this trellis isn't very tight right now. I'm gonna tighten it up later, but I have to take this off to be able to get the tiller to go right beside it here. If we would just let it go and not till beside it, the patch would just grow and grow and grow.
You can see there's these raspberry shoots that are all the way out here in the garden. The trellis is over there. That shows you like how deep that root system is, like how broad and how deep. That's one thing that I really, really love about having perennials everywhere, is that they're really good for soil structure. They keep the soil from eroding. In the past, we have tried to dig out perennials. So this whole bed here used to be rhubarb. Out in our garden, we have an asparagus patch that was massive, and we tried taking a bunch of it out. I'm telling you, it is so hard to get perennials out. Oh, I'm eating my hair. It all just goes to show that perennials are very strong and healthy, and if you take the time and the patience to invest in them, they will pay off for years and years. The next perennials that we have here in our homestead are herbs. And you all know I'm obsessed with herbs. Absolutely love herbs. They're so easy. And the perennial herbs get this like thick woody stem. You can see here, these are just like tough. and they will survive the winter. Some of these herbs don't even completely die off. My thyme had green leaves on it throughout the entire winter. I just cut these herbs off in like the fall or really early spring, and they just come back. Like every single one of these is already starting to come back. My echinacea is coming up here. This one is sage. That one is starting to bud again. Actually, the rosemary, I haven't seen any buds on yet, but I'm sure that'll come soon. And this is lavender. This one was the first one to come up. Herbs are another one of those things that can be really expensive to buy in a pot at a green store. Like sometime a green store. Herbs are another thing that can be really expensive initially to buy at a greenhouse. Like often they're a lot more expensive than just like a tomato plant or something. They come in like one pot and you have to spend like $6 for an herb. I think the echinacea that I bought last year was $8, but they will then last you just like kind of on into infinity. So it's definitely worth it.
I keep getting rid of layers. Feels a lot better out here, even if it is still a little windy. Our asparagus patch here really needs some compost. This area has been in asparagus for quite a few years now. It was actually much bigger than this. We had, I think it was 100 plants total. It was about 3 times as big as our patch is now. We were selling it at farmer's market and through a local store. And is actually probably our best money-making crop on our homestead. It takes some work because of the weeding and stuff, but otherwise it is a perennial, so it's not like you're replanting every year. And so for the amount of work that it takes is definitely a good crop to have if you're wanting to sell at farmer's market or something like that. Besides putting compost on this asparagus, also need to mulch between the rows, and we're gonna do that with leaves this year. We had weed cloth down in previous years. We got rid of that, I think it was last year, the year before. We're just slowly trying to get rid of more and more of that as time goes on, but it's so windy today, I don't think we're gonna try to spread the leaves, but I'll at least get this composted on the rows. The asparagus is already starting to peek through, which is really exciting. This is one of the most fun things for me in the garden in the spring. We love asparagus. Grilled asparagus is amazing, but putting compost on here is not gonna hurt them at all. I actually think probably these that are starting to peek through now, probably gonna end up getting frozen because we're supposed to get some freezing weather within the next week. I realized that I started saying something earlier and didn't finish. This patch used to be really big and we had asparagus here for so long, and because of the weed fabric and everything, the soil did not get amended very much. So that's why it especially needs some compost right now. You'll also notice that, like the raspberries, this asparagus has been cut down. We do that every fall, and then we burn the tops because asparagus beetles will overwinter in those, and you can end up with an infestation if you don't do that every year. So we make sure we get rid of that, and then everything just grows up nice again in the spring. Fun story about this asparagus. So this is the second year that it's been small like this. The year before that, while it was still big, we were kind of deciding that we weren't sure if we wanted to keep selling it at the store. And we decided to give our daughter a chance to do it. And it was a lot of work to take care of the weeds and everything, but she made like $600 in one season on our patch of asparagus. Ended up that she thought it was too much work, so she decided she didn't want to do it anymore, but it still was a really good option and a really good experience for her. We did try burning this asparagus one year. That was suggested by some people. Did not enjoy that experience very much. I think we'll just keep cutting it down. By the way, if you think my voice sounds terrible, it does sound terrible to me. I've been sick for about a week now, and I'm just getting over it. I was really sick, not fun. Finally getting over it, but my voice is still not doing very well.
Here's my strawberry patch. I absolutely love growing strawberries. Strawberries are just they start out the gardening year, they're so good. It's something that the kids get excited about because they taste so good. It's a little different than growing a green bean. These strawberries are dying to be uncovered, but you can see that they are greening up. They're putting out some new leaves, the ones that are sticking out. But I'm keeping these covered because we're still gonna have freezing nights for a couple weeks. And so I just leave these covered as long as possible. We still have weed fabric down, just in the rows of the strawberries. And honestly, it's a lifesaver. I'm still gonna keep this fabric down probably this year. Either that or just really, really thick straw in the rows because I don't have time to be weeding 200 strawberry plants. These here are my lovely currant bushes. They are the variety Pink Champagne. They're so much fun, they're so pretty. And yes, I chose them for the name, not gonna lie. What you're supposed to do is remove canes that are like 3 years old. After they're that old, they're not gonna bear very much fruit anymore. The way you want to prune your currants is in a vase shape, so you want the middle to be nice and open so that there's lots of sunshine and airflow that can go in there. And you want around 8 to 12 canes on the outside that are going to be bearing. The way that you can tell if canes are old is if they're like covered in lichen and if they're just starting to peel and get crispy. This right here is definitely an old branch. Currants are supposed to be pruned before they start budding, but I missed it this year. I forgot to do these when I was doing my trees. It's okay, they'll be fine. Just throw these branches onto a pile of mulch that's way too big to use anyways. We decided to plant currants because they're supposed to do really well here in Ohio, and also because they're supposed to be completely no fuss. Honestly, this is the first year that I'm even pruning them, and they have done really, really well with like no spraying, no nothing. I dump leaves around them. I don't even weed around these. And I just let them do their thing. They taste they're very tart, a little bit earthy. They taste a lot like rhubarb. We really enjoy them in jelly. It's not really the kind of jelly that you would want to use for a peanut butter and jelly, but it's more the kind of jelly you'd want to use for like a crusty artisan loaf with some homemade butter. It's actually Cody's, possibly his favorite jelly, probably next to strawberry.
One more thing to show you before we get to the fun part. I only have a couple pieces of advice that I can give you for fruit trees because we really don't do very well with them. I think that if we were actually getting fruit from these, would probably be my favorite perennials on our homestead. We've got a couple pear trees. I think we've got 4 apple trees and a cherry tree. We've got a couple nut trees up there I can show you. Those are actually doing pretty well and they take a lot less work than these fruit trees. But one thing that I am gonna do this year, and I'm gonna try to actually get it done, put it in the description of this video so you can see it, so you can hold me accountable, is a spray routine for these. We're not gonna use any toxic sprays for these, not chemical sprays, but we will use organic approved sprays for these. The kind of spray routine that I wanna do for these is not just to try to do a band-aid for pests and disease, but it's also to build up the health of the tree. So there'll probably be a couple different types of things that I'm going to be using for our spray routine. I think that one of the reasons that our fruit trees aren't doing so well now, even though they're bigger, is that we did not take very good care of them when we first planted them. We didn't water them enough, I think was probably the biggest thing. So my first piece of advice, water your trees really well while they're getting established. Second piece of advice, when you're ready to plant fruit trees or any kind of perennial, make sure you think long and hard about where you're going to put it. There's been a couple of fruit trees that I had to dig up because I put them in a dumb spot. One example would be cherry trees are toxic. The leaves are toxic for cattle, so you don't want to plant that close to a pasture. I planted some in places we just decided we wanted something else there. So think long and hard before you plant your perennials. This English walnut tree here is looking amazing. It is big, like 3 times as big as those trees out there, and we haven't done a thing with it. We haven't gotten any nuts off of it yet, but I'm kind of guessing we will this year because our other one that I'll show you in a little bit, we did get a couple off of it last year. I think maybe technically you should call this a bush, hazelnut tree bush, I'm not sure. But it actually has like a bunch of stems. When we first got it, I saw that it was starting to grow more stems out of the ground. And I was like, well, I should probably just keep it down to one trunk if it's a tree. So I started cutting them and I told somebody about it and they're like, no, you wanna let those grow. That's like, it's a bush. So we've actually been getting hazelnuts off of this for I think a couple years now. We actually had another hazelnut bush that was one of those things that had to get dug up and moved. Actually, maybe I knocked that one over with a weed eater. I think this English walnut tree right here is probably the nicest tree on our property. It just feels like it's growing in perfect symmetry. It requires no pruning. We got a few walnuts off of it last year, so I'm guessing we'll get even more this year. Really excited for that. And then here is actually where we're going to start planting our next perennial.
I have been wanting to plant elderberry for forever. It's been on my bucket list for so long, and because of the odd shape of our land, it can be really hard to figure out where to put perennials. And we've tried putting bushes along here before and they didn't make it, but this is the year that they're gonna make it. We had a subscriber send us some of these beautiful elderberry cuttings. Thank you so much to whoever it was that sent these. Elderberry bushes can get really, really huge, and I had a friend tell me, leave room for them to go nuts. So I'm going to. The internet says they can get up to like 12 feet wide and 12 feet tall, which is insanely huge. I don't know if these will get that big or not, but I'm going to leave room for them to do that if they want to. And then I think we're also gonna plant a couple of these out by our bees. So elderberry is something I love to make elderberry syrup for my kids. It's something that's really good for immunity, and adding medicine to my cabinet that I grew here on our homestead is so much fun for me.
Our first plant needs to go right beside this sprouting stump, so it gives me an excuse to bring out my little chainsaw again. One, two, three.
So from what I understand, elderberry cuttings are very, very simple to grow. They're very hardy. You can see here that there's those little white nodes. All of those little white nodes are places that this cutting is willing to put out roots and grow strong. I have literally seen people just taking these cuttings and just like poking them straight in the ground. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna be a lot more gentle with these. We're just gonna plant these. I am going to put some buckets over them. My gardening instincts tell me that these are going to need a little bit of shelter, especially with some of the weather that we're gonna be having. We have high wind and we're gonna have like tons of rain. There's flood warnings, so I'm gonna protect these a little bit. It's really nice to get stuff like this started early in the spring, because then you don't have to do all of that watering while they get established. Here's the first cutting. Seems kind of weird to be watering when there's flood warnings. I think there's like a tornado warning tonight. But I always just really like to have that really good soil contact with the plant that you get when you water right after. They're flying like crazy right now. I'm serious, I got chased by a swarm of them and it was not funny.
I'm over here by myself now because Michelle and Izzy were too scared to come close to the bees. I don't really blame them. They both had some bad experiences with them, and I actually did just get stung a little bit ago. But I'm gonna plant a couple of these elderberry bushes down here for a couple reasons. One, because it's their space. This actually seems like a decent space to put some bushes, but probably more than for us to have more elderberries, for the bees to have a source of nectar and pollen, and maybe it'll make some extra good honey too. I am gonna plant one more elderberry bush back here, so the bees have 2 of them. But I was gonna tell you that we did show you all of the perennials that we have here in our homestead, but everything's kind of looking drab right now because spring hasn't fully come on. Everything's still in kind of winter mode. So if you want to see some really good looking stuff and see the harvest that we actually get from these perennials, you're gonna want to watch this video next.